Oh, same team. Hope we're all good. Right. So this is the first addition to our weekly educational trainings that we're going to be putting up on this YouTube channel. And going with the votes, this was the one that the majority of us wanted to touch on first. Next week's one is going to be looking at supplement stacks, supplement design, and reasons why we take certain supplements and whatnot. But for this one, let's look at the ultimate recovery guide, shall we? So in this one, we're looking at why recovery matters, the stress bucket, identifying all key areas in our life that might be filling up that bucket, that stress bucket, recognizing stressors. Then we're going to go into the recovery foundation, which is looking at methods, tips, tricks, habits that we can really improve, incorporate, and look to get better at doing to then manage stress and making sure that recovery is as on point as it possibly can be. And we're going to finish up with a little bit of mindset for success, long-term success as an athlete. And then we're going to round this one up with a action plan checklist for you as well. All right. So let's get into this, shall we? Why recovery matters. Probably something that we don't talk about a lot. I think we're very good as athletes at understanding why we need to do threshold training, why we need to do power output, why we need to develop that skill, why we need aerobic fitness, why we need top end strength work and things like that. But why do we actually need recovery? So when we look at things, training is the stimulus that we create in the gym or on the track or on the road, right? The recovery allows us to absorb that stimulus to then make the adaptation for your body to then get fitter, faster, stronger, more explosive. Okay. We cannot peak performance if we're just constantly pushing training volume, training load week after week after week, and we're not able to absorb that training load. If we're not able to adapt and absorb the training load, we're unable to then peak our performance. And all we're doing is operating under a place of high fatigue levels. All right. So to peak performance, we need a balance of both. Yes, good quality training, of course, but we also need good quality recovery protocols and strategies as well as our training. All right. We cannot peak our performance. We can't. So the stress bucket, all the things that I think are very, very key for us to highlight and look at improving. Okay. Training stress is very, very easy to manage, and it's probably the easiest one to manage. It's the one where we're like, right, yeah, we know the sets and the reps, we know the intensity, we know the paces that we're going to be hitting, we know the loads that we're going to be aiming for or progressing to. We know all this, so we can manage that training load. But the other three are very, very difficult for us to predict and then manage. All right. Life stress and mental stress, I think, kind of coexist. Mental stress, we of course get relationship stress and we get work stress and things of that nature as well. But I think life stress and mental stress kind of go hand in hand. Um, and then the fourth one, and probably the most rare one, and the one that's not really talked about enough, I don't think, is environmental stress. So environmental stress would be things like um, being at a race weekend. Hyrox athletes are incredibly guilty for this, and it is one of my pet peeves. Is if you're racing on the Sunday, but it's a race weekend, and you're there on the Friday all day, and you're there on the Saturday all day, you're going to be completely taxed on the Sunday. I don't care if you enjoy being in that environment or not, you're going to be completely taxed come the Sunday. Your body, when it understands stress, it just understands that. It understands stress. It doesn't understand stress from training, stress from your relationship, stress from life, stress from work, or environmental stress. It doesn't understand that. It's a very, very similar signal and response that your body creates when it's under stress, regardless of where that stress is coming from. All right. And that's something, again, that isn't really talked about enough. We just think, right, I'm stressed due to work, but it's not training stress, so I'm able to then do this really hard threshold session. Stress on the body, the way I like to kind of describe it is like if you're really stressed at work, for example, or you've been at a Hyrox weekend on the Friday and Saturday and you need to race on the Sunday, it's like you've just done a really tough track session, or you've just done a really tough threshold session, you wouldn't then follow a really tough threshold or interval session with the next day another tough interval or threshold session, would you? You would follow a tough day with an easier day or a medium day, right? And it's the exact same thing with our lifestyle habits. We need to make sure that it's not just a case of, right, yeah, we're going to listen to David Goggins and we're going to just toughen up and man up and go train anyway. Like, that's not the case. As athletes, we need to train a little bit more intelligently. So when life stress or work stress or mental stress is a little bit high, we need to be productive in our process and our thought process to be like, right, am I actually in the position to then push to my best capabilities in this session, or do I need to auto-regulate and adjust and adapt my training to suit my current situation? And that's something that comes with a lot of experience and I would say athletic maturity. A lot of athletes who have done it for years and years and years are very good at recognizing when their body's in a position or where their life's in a position to go, right, I can really put my all into this training session, or no, today's been a bit of a tricky day. I'm going to pull things back, still do some good work, but not the fully described session that is planned. All right. The best training plan is one that you can adapt and adjust around your lifestyle, not just these rigid, right? It's thresholds on Monday, it's intervals on Thursday, it's a simulation type session on a Saturday, and it needs to be that. That's not what training is all about. It's all about working with your lifestyle and your current situations. And we need to do a really, really good job of that. You're not being a wet wipe for being like, right, fuck, I've had 2 hours sleep and I'm stressed out my nut. I need to then go do this interval session. You're definitely not being one of them. Everyone in this team doesn't create excuses not to do the work. Do the opposite. You find reason to then do the work. Everyone's on the same boat as everyone's on the same boat with that mindset, right? But sometimes that's not the most productive. You'll know fine well within yourself if you're making excuses or you just genuinely need to pull things back. So weekly assessments, daily check-ins with yourself are always going to be, I think, the most optimal way to progress long term as an athlete. All right. We need to think long term rather than this like short term. How much intensity and volume can I get in within a week? It's how much intensity and volume and training load can you get in a 12-month period, a 24-month period, a 3-year period. That's how real athleticism and peak performance and how you fulfill your potential as an athlete is made. It's a long game. It's not the days and weeks. It's the months and years that we need to look at. All right. Recognizing stressors. First one again is probably the most notable is high training load. When we're going into build phases, when we're going into competition peak phases and things like that, when we're going into race blocks, training load needs to be high. It absolutely has to. So of course that's going to be one of them. Uh, Work and life pressure, mortgages to pay, bills to pay, a roof to keep over your head, a promotion to chase, a business to grow, clients to serve. All these things will or can play a big factor in how well we're actually recovering or not. Sleep disruption as well. When stress is high, from a training point of view, from a mental point of view as well, sleep is going to be interrupted. So that's another clear sign of, right, we're not sleeping well. Why aren't we sleeping well? And not just like you've had one bad night, this will be like several bad nights, right? Why is that? Assess it, okay? Travel and environmental stresses. If you're traveling a lot, if you're someone who constantly flies quite a bit, or has long drives, commute to and from work, that can, of course, play a factor in how well we're able to recover. Okay, so all these things are going to be very, very key again for you to really sit and assess how your week's looking, how your month's looking, and allow us to communicate that, so that we can then really maximize your training block, your training load. So we're working with you rather than training always working against you. All right. So those are I would say the 4 key areas to just recognize those stressors. Okay. recovery foundation. And this is what we're going to go into now and really highlight some tips and methods and strategies that we can actually put in. So sleep, nutrition, hydration, and then movement as well. So sleep and recovery. I think sleep is probably uh, the single most important thing that we can do from a recovery standpoint. Supplements, hydration levels, food quality and quantity, they're all good. Nothing beats uh, really nailing a sleep routine and making sure that you are getting the best night's sleep possible. The optimal duration and quality. Um, Optimal duration, if we're full-time athletes, then I'll probably say 8 to 10 hours. They say that that's the championship or champion sleep duration. We're not full-time athletes. We all have other responsibilities out with our own athletic endeavors. So I would always say 6 to 8 hours, something like that is going to be very, very good. And then quality-wise, I think if we're getting roughly 75 to 90 minutes of deep sleep per night, I think that's good quality. You'll get some sleep experts, I'm using air quotes here, sleep experts that will say, no, you need a little bit more than that. But this is just purely anecdotal. Um, if I get less than kind of 70 minutes of deep sleep, I know I'm a little bit groggy the next morning. Anything above kind of 75 or above, I'm pretty good then. And again, sleep quality, 6 to 8 hours, sleep duration, sorry, 6 to 8 hours, I think for the everyday athlete that we are is what we should really aim for. I think a lot of the time athletes stress about not getting 8 to 9 to 10 hours sleep and the perfect amount of deep sleep, that it actually is detrimental because you're stressing about not sleeping. And stress is the thing that's going to impact your sleep. So I just think if we lighten the load a little bit and just do our best to get into a good sleep routine, and obviously touch on these things here, I think job done now. Okay. Sleep hygiene, a dark room, a cool room, and then try and limit screen time. If that, you know, I'm saying if that impacts you, I just think it does. Even if you're able to still watch something on TV and drift off, I still think it does impact the quality of sleep from a deep sleep perspective. I really, really do. This is again personal experience. So I think nice cool room, a dark room as well, wear an eye mask if you've not got like blackout curtains and stuff like that, and then try and limit screen time pre-bed. And then I've just got a rule now that my phone stays on my desk when I go to sleep, and it's kind of helping me out a little bit. Um, and then tracking versus just you rating the quality of sleep. Um, I think if you're wearing a Whoop and you're using that, it's probably the most accurate thing to look at HRV, sleep quality, and things of that nature. Is it going to be 100% accurate? No, but again, Whoop doesn't claim that it is 100% accurate, but it's probably the most accurate thing on the market right now that you can use to then track recovery protocols, right? That's what they do. It's a single thing that's what they do. They don't do, it's not like a Garmin that tries to do everything, right? I do think if you're using like an Apple Watch, a Garmin, a Fitbit, for example, they are so inaccurate. There's been times where, with my Garmin, I've slept like an absolute rock, and then I've checked my Garmin and my HRV's way low, and it says my sleep was disturbed and my body battery is at like 36. But I'm like, well, I've actually woke up before I checked my watch. I've actually woke up feeling great, and that's then played a bit of a negative on my mindset of how I go attack a session, for example. So take that with a pinch of salt. I would always go off of personal perceived, um, uh, yeah, just your personal own judgment and intuition on that one, rather than just looking at the data. Yes, you can definitely use both. I think using both can be good, but I just wouldn't buy into too much about what your Garmin or Apple Watch or Fitbit say. All right. Don't let that be the thing that ruins your day. If you think you've slept well, then you've probably slept well, right? You know how well you feel in yourself. Okay. So that's what I would just say there. I like to highlight that because that's something I've done personally myself. Is on my Garmin, I've completely removed my HRV from the actual watch screen, my HRV, my sleep score, and stuff like that. I do not track it anymore because of what I've just said there. I was sleeping pretty great, and then I would wake up, check my watch, and my HRV's really unbalanced, and my body battery is at like 20, and it's really played an impact on my ability to go full send a session. So I now just use my own kind of intuition and go, right, now I've slept pretty well, I feel good, I'm going to push on. All right. Nutrition and hydration. So, proteins for repair, carbs are for refueling, micronutrients are for cellular recovery, and hydration before, during, and after training. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, the one that I want to really highlight here is carbs. One thing that I've seen or have seen a lot of track and field athletes, Eagle Britson, Josh Kerr, for example, is if they've got like a 5K track session, for example, they hammer gels every like 10 minutes to 12 minutes. They hammer gels, not to the purpose of they want the carbohydrate uptake during the session because your body's not going to digest the carbohydrates for it to be able to use it during that session. But it starts the recovery process very, very early. So you're not then doing that session, then playing catch up with glycogen to then try and refuel what we've just done, what we've just burnt. And I think that's a great insight. It really, really is, especially if we're not in a deficit and we're at like a maintenance set point or a surplus set point. Then I think we should really start utilizing carbohydrate timing during sessions and really prioritizing carbohydrates throughout the course of your training day. Pre, intra, and then post is where you should be uptaking the most amount of carbohydrates. If you've got a double session, trust me, your body's going to need that amount of glycogen, that amount of carbohydrates, in it to then just repair. We don't want to be chasing ourselves, especially on double training days. We don't want to be chasing our tail with recovery and with trying to fuel the next session. We want to start fueling the next session during the first session. That's one thing that I heard Josh Kerr say, and ever since that, I've been like, "Yep, if I'm going out for a 7K run, I've got two gels on me." And that's helped me out as well. So that's something that I want to really, really highlight there. But again, nutrition hydration is very, very simple, right? We don't want to overcomplicate it. We want enough protein. So enough protein is 1.65 grams of carbohydrates per kilo of body mass. All right. Carbohydrate wise, we can go anywhere between 3 grams per kilo body weight up to, depends on the severity of your surplus. We can get up to, and the intensity of the session and duration of the session, of course, but we can get up to, 6, 7, 8 grams per kilo body weight. We really, really can. Obviously, work within your calories. I don't want you hitting 8 grams of carbohydrates per kilo body mass. Work within your work within your calories, but your carbohydrates should be the priority uh, macrocycle, macronutrient. Okay. Micronutrients just have a lot of color on your plate. Have a lot of color on your plate. Eat your fruit, eat your veg. It's the best thing to do. And then hydration is one thing that I think people like to say, right, we need a gallon of water every single day. Some athletes do because they're larger athletes who have high output. We, but other athletes might only need 3 liters, 2.5 liters because they're a smaller, leaner athlete. You won't need that much. So all I would go off of is again, feel. Um, we can look at uh, we can look at we can look at signals like are we getting hungry when we've just eaten type of thing. That's a good sign of we're just dehydrated. Are you getting a bit dry mouth? That's a decent sign of hydration. uh Discolor of urine, so is your pee yellow? If so, probably a good sign that you're a bit dehydrated. So things of that nature are really, really good just to check our hydration. But don't stress about needing to get like 4 liters of water in. I can't remember the last time I hit 4 liters of water. I really don't. I'm 3 to 4, somewhere in there. If I get three, then I'm happy with that. All right. Practical strategies. Practical strategies to help recovery. Active things like walking, yoga, mobility work, Pilates class. I like spin out on the bike, something like that. Some light, non-intense movement is very, very, very good for recovery. I think all too often people fear rest days, um, because they just think, right, it's just sat doom scrolling on my phone and rewatching Friends on Netflix. I don't even know if it's on Netflix, but you know what I mean. People just think try and not move at all. I think the opposite. Your body's designed to move, right? So we want to then make sure that we're doing that. We're not just sat still, laying on the couch. Be active with your recovery or your rest days. It'll help recovery. Passive strategies: massage, sauna, meditation's really good if you like that. I was thinking, do we put cold plunge in there because it's a bit of a hype thing on Instagram right now? I'm just, you know what? I'll say this. If you think that cold plunging or cold water therapy is good for your recovery, then what I would say is continue doing it. Just because I've got my own personal thoughts on it. Um, and there's very mixed data points on cold water therapy or cold plunges. It really is. Cold plunges after training is an absolute no-no. We don't want to do that. There's the argument for people to say, well, it reduces inflammation after like a strength day, after a strength session. Yeah, we want that inflammation in our body. Inflammation means that that's your body started that recovery process. All right. So we don't want to be dipping into a cold plunge or anything like that straight after a session. Maybe in the morning or something like that, as far away from training as possible, or lasting at night. And yeah, potentially, but there's just too much conflicting points on cold plunges that it's a no for me. But if you think it works, and you have seen an uptick in your performance, regardless if it's a placebo or it's working, it works, right? I would then continue that. But I think the three key things there in terms of passive strategies would be massage, sports massage is always good. Sauna is tremendous, and then meditation, relaxation, things that just chill you out is always going to be the three key things that I would want you to really focus on. All right. Um, Subjective, so monitoring stress. Subjective, mood, energy, soreness, DOMS, motivation, the want to train. All these things here are things that we again need to use and check in with ourselves, I think, quite frequently. There's something um, that I just think is going to really elevate your overall performance and really fulfill your potential as an athlete if we're able to really check in with ourselves. Our lives are just constantly go, go, go from the minute we wake up. We all have busy lives. We all have busy careers. We all have a lot of training to get done. We all have all these different hats and different areas in our life that we want to pursue and have and give attention to, right? But we'll we'll fail to give our best to all these different areas if we're not constantly giving our best to ourselves. And I think these frequent check-ins and just being like, right, how is my mood? Where's my energy levels at? How are DOMs? How are muscle soreness? Where's my motivation at? Am I really in a good position to then again keep pushing on for the rest of the week and do some hard sessions and do the full amount of volume, or will I benefit from again pulling back slightly? Objective, again, using trackers and things like that, HRV, resting heart rate. One thing that I've started doing is even on my easy runs now, even on my condition sessions at the end of like my circuit-based stuff at the end of a strength session, is I start wearing a heart monitor and then I assess my data on the heart monitor. And if my heart rate completely spikes, then I'm like, right, I'm probably a little bit fatigued right now. So, maybe tomorrow not do that interval session or not do, a tough stretch session, whatever it may be. Maybe pull back a little bit, maybe take an extra rest day and then go again, just rejig my sessions, and adapt my session to suit my current situation. I do think a combination of doing both is very, very good. But again, I still want to highlight this. Checking in with yourself is always going to be the most accurate thing that you can do. And nobody will tell me any different. Um, I think being able to be really aware of how you are, where you're at from a recovery standpoint is going to be the best thing that you'll do. All right. Because again, Garmin's can be way off. Your Apple Watch and your Fitbits and things like that can be way off sometimes. So we don't want that. But again, combination of both can be good. When recovery isn't optimal, some of the signs that we'll see muscle soreness, which I've left out there, but things like fatigue, um, uh, poor sleep, irritability, struggled to say that before, energy dips, things like that. Are you needing to have a nap during the day more than normal? Are you a little bit short with people? Does things annoy you that don't normally annoy you? Things like that. Poor sleep quality, again, we've touched on that before. Is your sleep cycle broken up? Are you getting enough? Are you struggling to get to sleep? Another thing that's a really, really notable sign is your appetite. Sometimes your appetite will spike, other times your appetite will just drop. Those signs there are potentially a sign of really high fatigue levels and you're just not recovering optimally. All right. Solutions to it. Adjusting training load. Like what I've said before, during this training, adjusting training load. No plan or the best plan of attack or the best training plan, should I say, is one that can be adjusted, adapted to suit your current situation, current life, obstacles and barriers, and complement your current lifestyle rather than it complicate things. All right. Focus on the priority work. One top set on a deadlift, bench press, pull up, squat at a RPE 8 to 9 is enough to stimulate strength and hypertrophy growth, and to maintain that strength and hypertrophy. I think all too often when we go into our strength training, we think, right, it needs to be 2, 3, 4, 5 sets of work. It doesn't. When we're stressed, your body's just not going to be able to absorb that stress and that stimuli. That's not going to be able to adapt from it. All right. So we're just burning ourselves in this pillar or this hole of fatigue then. So one top set, if you're really fatigued, but you still want to go and train, because you don't want to miss out on a session, strip things back. You don't need to do the full session. Hit your priority work. So, for example, today I done one set of deadlift and 2 set on bench press, superset that with 2 sets of a row variation. And then for me, I done 90 wall balls and then 3 sets of 30 wall balls, and then that was my session done. I didn't do the burpees because I can tag that on to the Thursday session. I done some sled pull the other day, and that's moving fine, so I'm happy with that. And then I left out. No, that was it. No, I left out walking lunges just because I didn't have time for them. And I'm pretty under recovered right now. But I still got some really, really solid work in there. So I adjusted it, focused on the priority stuff, and then got out and got started on that recovery process. In micro sessions as well, again, looking at your training week and going, right, okay, if I've got a 15K run, but that is out of that 15K run, 10K is at threshold, probably half that. So you're still getting a threshold stimulus, and you're getting a threshold stimulus that your body is able to absorb and adapt to. So again, this is all about auto-regulating your training. Okay, you're not being a wet wipe, or you'll know if you're being a wet wipe or not, if you're just creating excuses because you can't be bothered doing it. Again, I've got full confidence that we've got a bunch of savages in this team, and you don't make excuses to then not do the work. So if you are really, really struggling to recover, then again, priority work and then strip some volume back. Okay. Busy week strategies again, looking at how we can then manage the workload, not just training, but total workload during busy spells. All right. You can't give 100% to everything at the same time. Work in phases. This is something that me and the missus spoke about this morning, in fact. We're in a position where coaching the most amount of athletes that we've ever coached from a competitive standpoint. I'm traveling this season more than I've ever traveled. Um, and we're in a position where we're obviously taking on new athletes as well. And then I'm going all in on training for the first time in a long time. Um, and that is going to require me to give 100% to both areas, to use and to myself as an athlete. So we need to then things need to slide. Things need to be adjusted. So it's like, right, I don't have time to always walk the dog. I don't have time to have several date nights throughout the course of the week. There's going to be times where I am working a little bit late. There's going to be times where I'm just really fatigued from training, things like that. It's okay to speak to your other half or speak to people and just go, right, at this point over the next X amount of time, I'm just going to go full send into this. But then after that period of time, then it's like, right, I'll cut back on training, for example, and that's going to free up a lot more time and energy into putting more time and focus into us, our relationship, whatnot. All right. If work's really, really busy as well, what we don't want to do is couple a really busy work day with a really hard, intense session. We don't. We want to try and work with your work schedule or family schedule, wherever it may be, right? We need to then just be smart with it, especially from a place of if we're having like poor sleep and our digestion's not the best and our appetite is piss poor, things of that nature. We need to go, right, okay, I've got a really, really busy day in the office, or I've got, I know, for example, over the next couple of days, work's going to be absolute manic. I'm probably not in a position, excuse me, I'm not in a position to really, really full send an interval session. I'll push that back to a later on, a session later on in the week when I know things are going to slow down a little bit and I'll have a little bit more breathing space from a mental capacity standpoint as well. All right. So work with your schedule, not against it. All right. Mindset. Recovery equals training, consistency over intensity, train smarter, not just harder. We are a bunch of individuals who love to train hard. There's not a single person in this team that doesn't like to train hard. You're guilty for training sometimes too hard. I've never met a bunch of individuals that I've had to put reins on you to pull you back. The amount of conversations we've had over the last couple of weeks to be like, you need to take a rest day. You're pushing the boat a little bit too much here, or half the training volume, or we're taking an unplanned deload for a couple of days so that you can rest and recover. It's not a bad thing. I'm not saying this from a negative standpoint. This is just the individuals that you are. You're all very ambitious athletes. You really, really are. But peak performance isn't just about training harder. If it was about training harder and more often, David Goggins would be a multiple world champion endurance athlete. But I don't think he's that caliber. He's just a bit of a savage. But he's not a world level or an elite level athlete. If you look at any sort of track and field athlete, again, Eagle Brits and Josh Kerr, if you look at any sort of 70.3 or triathlon athlete, they look at the recovery as just as much of a priority as their own training. So we need to make sure that we're doing the same. We need to act like athletes, all right? By managing all these different stresses that we've just touched on there. All right. And we'll wrap this one up with the action plan checklist. I think we should, off the back of this, sit down and write some daily non-negotiables. Don't just write things to fill a blank bit of paper. Look at things that you can incorporate in your life and make consistent on a daily basis, or as frequently as you possibly can. all right? Because not every day is going to be the same, right? But if you can do it 5 out of 7 days or 6 out of 7 days, then it's probably a daily non-negotiable that you want to put in there, all right? So don't just write a bunch of recovery checklist things that you're going to do or habits that you're going to do on a day, and it's going to take you like 45 minutes to complete. Just look at some of the things that you're not doing so well at right now and manage that. It could just be spending less time scrolling on Instagram and comparing yourself to others. It could be the case of you need to your sleep hygiene in terms of it's a really warm room, you don't have blackout curtains, and you're on your phone. Or you're watching TV, or you've got TV in your bedroom, things like that that you can improve there. Eating too close to bedtime as well, drinking water or anything too close to bedtime as well. That's going to disrupt your sleep. Caffeine intake as well. Caffeine has a half-life of 8 hours. So if you're going to bed at 10, your caffeine cutoff should be 12 at the latest. All right. So make sure that we're doing things like that. Supplements, stimulants as well. Just be careful of that. Yes, beta alanine is very, very important for us. Um, but I found if I take that past again 1 o'clock, then although it doesn't have a caffeine stimulant in it, of course, it still just makes me a little bit wired. So I don't take it past a set point of the day, right? Weekly rhythm, hard days, easy days, exact same as your training. You wouldn't follow an interval session with a tough threshold session, would you? You would follow an interval tough session with an easier easier or medium effort day. It wouldn't be a hard day followed by a hard day. All right. So try and have a weekly flow like that. If you've got a really busy day at work, then try and not have another really busy full-on training week, for example. All right. Try and marry it up a little bit. Again, it's never going to be perfect, but as long as we're trying these things, I think that's the best thing that we can ever do. All right. And monthly deloads as well, not just from training. We're good at deloading. Again, structured training, periodization. We're really, really good at having frequent deloads every 3 to 6 weeks, right? We're very good at that. But having a bit of a deload from life as well, not always just pushing business, career, and things of that nature. Having time where we can just strip things back a little bit. Doesn't need to be a week deload or anything. Doesn't even need to be a monthly one. But as long as we're having breaks and just constantly chasing progression, I think that's going to be the best thing for us. All right. There's a couple of yous in the team this week that have had the first proper rest day, rest weekend, back to back to back rest days, um, holidays that you have just went on, just to completely reset from again chasing athletic goals and chasing business growth and things of that nature as well. So again, use that as a lesson to be like how well you felt after the holiday, the deload, the rest weekend and things like that is fucking crucial. It really, really is. All right, team. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this one. Again, some homework for you to start writing down some things that you're going to improve on. And I guarantee you, if you treat your recovery strategies as much as you treat your training priorities, you'll level up your performance. All right, team. Hope that was good. Let me know.